everyone, and welcome to another Fight of the Night review. Before I actually start the damn thing, I know, once again I didn't get it done yesterday, because food, and I want to say thank you to everyone who watched the Fight of the Gods, not just on Twitch, but on YouTube as well, because that's the first one I've put on YouTube, first of many, and what a show. My god, that Spartacus Drake Harrison match was a fucking banger. An absolute banger. Speaking of bangers, the main event of Saturday night's fight card at the UFC Apex Center in Las Vegas, Nevada, between former lightweight champion Rafael dos Anjos and Paul Felder, stepping in with only like a few days' notice. Like, props to the dude. So yeah, I'm going to try and go through it round by round as best as I can. Obviously, because it's been a day since I watched it, I'm not going to be able to retain as much information as I'd like. But just know this, I really like this fight. So let's do it. So we begin, and it's obviously a pretty good stand-up war, as you would expect between these two. Paul Felder is initiating a lot of it, but he does wind up getting pushed back by dos Anjos a lot. Dos Anjos is swinging a lot of kicks to the leg and a lot to the body. His body kick is there for him a lot in this fight. He throws a couple to the head, but not as many as he does to the body, and he has like a nasty left cross that he just like snaps so quick to dos Anjos. And eventually he does manage to back Felder up. Felder, obviously, he lands some really good combos as well. He does back away dos Anjos a little bit, but dos Anjos mostly takes control, and he manages to get a takedown, and yeah, that is sort of one of the main stories of this match. Dos Anjos, sorry I'm wiping my nose so much, just very itchy. Dos Anjos is using his takedown and grappling work quite a lot. He's actually doing a lot more wrestling than I've seen him do in quite a while. So yeah, he managed to use that to keep Paul Felder on the back foot, and Felder, props to him, he managed to defend a fair few of the takedowns, and he managed to use his defense and get back to his feet and break it up and break it away, and went for some really good combos. And then there was a moment near the end of round one where both men went for a takedown at the same time, but they clashed heads, so they were a bit like loopy and out of it, but they still managed to close the round with some really good striking and punching. So yeah, round one, all things considered, I would give the striking to Paul Felder. In fact, the striking is quite close throughout the entire fight, but I still sort of give the round to dos Anjos because his wrestling was really, really good, as was his body kicks, but like, his wrestling is especially what managed to cinch him that round for me. It was a very, very close first round, though. So yeah, I definitely think dos Anjos takes round one, personally. And then round two starts, and it's pretty much the same as round one in terms of how it goes. Paul Felder is pushing the action a lot, really, really going for the striking. Dos Anjos is landing that nasty left hand. He rocks Paul Felder a couple of times in round two with that left hand and his left body kick, and he does eventually manage to get a takedown and just like smothers Paul against the cage and really pushes on him. One thing I forgot to mention in round one, though, was the fact that Felder landed he landed an uppercut during a combo he was throwing in round one, which cut dos Anjos above his eye there, and there is a much nastier cut which we'll get to soon, which occurred in round three, I believe. But yeah, that was sort of a big factor for Felder and for dos Anjos, because dos Anjos suffered the cut, obviously. But he didn't let it bother him a lot, and the two managed to put on, again, just a really entertaining round. Yeah, Paul Felder was keeping it standing. He threw some really good uppercuts in round two. Dos Anjos was doing a bit more of his own stand-up, and I don't mean comedy, waka waka. He was throwing a few more strikes in round two, but he was outlanded slightly by Paul. But his wrestling is what managed to get him the win in round two as well. Like, again, it was really close. Striking to Paul, wrestling and round control to dos Anjos. But again, it was just extremely entertaining, and like, there was a moment in round two, I think, where dos Anjos had like a standing head and arm choke. It could have been round two or round four. It might have been both. Let's just say it was. It probably wasn't. And he almost actually had it, but Paul Felder held on, and he managed to like sort of escape it and get back to his feet. So yeah, that's sort of the story of round two. And once again, close, giving it in favour to dos Anjos though. Round three, however, was not so close. It was definitely a bigger striking advantage to Paul, but dos Anjos went for a takedown a lot earlier in the round, and he held Paul Felder down for a massive portion of it. There really wasn't a lot to say about this round. He got a takedown, he secured it, he went for I was going to say he went for a Kimura attempt, but I think that was in round five. He went for a couple of good submission attempts. He got some really good ground and pound on Paul, but Paul, I think that was the thing about this round, and this is something that Trevor Whitman pointed out. The fact that Dos Anjos was able to get these takedowns because Paul was against the cage behind the black line, whereas one of the takedowns he got was behind the black line but not against the cage, and it was like more away from the cage, like in a closing gap between the cage and where the black line is on the outside. And yeah, that made it a lot more difficult for Paul to actually get out this takedown. So this was a very technical takedown that Dos Anjos did, and it gave him a lot more control of round 3. Once again, don't have a lot to say about it, so yeah, round 3 definitely goes to Dos Anjos, and yeah, I don't really see how Paul really won round 3, but he did do a pretty good job with his striking while he could still do it, so yeah, but Dos Anjos definitely had the better control of round 3. Next is round 4, and round 4 is probably the first one where it felt like Paul won. I think round 4 is also where an important thing happens near the end of the round. Well, I mean, the two obviously, trade really, really good strikes. Paul Felder is starting to put his combos together a bit more. He's defending the takedowns a bit better in round 4. He manages to, push himself off the cage. There's a moment where Dos Anjos is just holding Felder against the cage. It doesn't really go for a takedown yet. Felder manages to reverse that. Dos Anjos reverses that and turns it around and then gets another, he gets the arms on the legs, takes Paul down again. That's sort of how it works. And there was a moment when they did manage to get back up onto their feet, and I think this is also the part of the fight where Dos Anjos went for a standing head and arm choke. But yeah, after they pulled away, there was a moment where Dos Anjos landed a strike. I don't fully know what it was. It was like a left hand to the forehead as the round was ending. And it was before the buzzer went off, so it wasn't an illegal blow. But because of how hard the hit was, it cracked open a cut on Paul's forehead. And it took ages to wash the blood out by the time that round 5 started. And yeah, I mean, round 4, it's also a very, very close round. This entire fight was really close. But because of that shot at the end, and because once again Dos Anjos just had much better control, maybe it goes to him? I don't know. It does go to him because he won the fight by split decision with 2 rounds giving all 5 rounds, 2 judges, giving all 5 rounds to him. So, yeah, but this round was a perfect example of that. Dos Anjos with the takedown, really, really good striking. Felder put together some combos. He once again went for that spinning elbow, which has become a patented move of his, and he didn't really land it a lot, but it was still in there for the majority of the fight, and he still looked really good. But yeah, walking into round 5, Dos Anjos definitely had the majority of it. And speaking of round 5, once again, there's really not a lot I can say that wasn't already said about rounds 1, 2, or 4, with the exception of the fact that Paul Felder had a massive cut on his forehead. It reminded me of the time that Forrest Griffin got cut open by Shogun Hua way back when they had their first fight. But yeah, it was just messing with Felder's vision, obviously, and it took a lot of Vaseline to try and patch the cut up, and even when the round started, it wasn't all there. Although, speaking of round starting, I did forget to mention that I think round 3 started with, or round 2. It started when, with Paul Felder picking up an iron that had been left behind by his, cornermen, and he gave them back. And I thought that was quite funny. So, yeah, back to round 5 though. But yeah, as round 5 started, you could see the blood trickling down Paul Felder and landing on his nose, and because of how close it is to his right eye, it looks like it's going to seep into there, and it kind of does, and it messes with his vision, as cuts are wont to do. And yeah, basically, Dos Anjos takes massive advantage of that. He goes for several body kicks, he goes for that really nasty left hand, he throws some really good uppercuts, he throws some stuff that stuns Felder. Just absolutely, goes for it, 100%. He goes for the takedown again, has a lot of control of round 5. As the round is closing, the two men once again have exciting exchanges like they do throughout the majority of the fight when it's standing. And yeah, it's easy to see that Dos Anjos got the win. I would have honestly given him a much closer unanimous decision. I don't think Paul did it enough for it to be split. He did hold the majority in terms of striking, but Dos Anjos controlled the fight a lot more, not just with his wrestling, but with his own striking as well. It wasn't really better than Felder's, but yeah, I think striking is... It does contradict what I just said, but Paul, he was a bit better in terms of that. But Dos Anjos, he landed harder, if that makes sense. That's where it comes to. That's always, the thing. Do you go for the guy who landed harder, or do you go for the guy who landed more? That's always been a problem with any judging system, and as I myself am not a judge, yeah, I really have no place to say it. But all in all, this was still a really entertaining fight. It went to a lot of places. There was a great moment in round 5, which I forgot to mention, where Dos Anjos went for a unique looking Kimura with his crotch on Paul Felder's face. It was very, very strange. But at the end of the day, really good fight. It could be in my top 10, it might not be. I don't really know. I really liked it. I'm glad Paul Felder got the win. No, he didn't get the win. I'm glad Paul Felder showed up on such short notice, and Dos Anjos getting the win was a really, really good thing, I think. So, yeah, absolutely the right call. I feel like he won, and it was just an entertaining 25 minutes. So, don't really have a lot else to say. I will see you all possibly for tomorrow for a very brief history of the Pretty Reckless, and then the day after that for the full backtracking episode. I'm not going to be doing any PBW until maybe next week because I've got some stuff to sort out. So, yeah, I'll see you tomorrow for a new video. As always, thank you for watching. You're awesome. Bye bye.